Hi, welcome to our first video class in Photoshop CC 2018, and today we'll be talking largely about the interface and interfaces of Photoshop, the tools and what the tools are used for in Photoshop. So as we proceed in the class, we get to be using these tools more efficiently, and we'll be talking about the shortcuts to each of the tools, which are very important. And the reason for shortcuts is basically for you to work more efficiently and faster. So all those things is what we'll be doing during the course of this class, and I hope you enjoy it. So first thing first is I want you to follow this class as we build it up gradually, so you won't miss any step. So I'll be doing a step-by-step process, so you follow it by that step so you don't miss any step at all. So without further ado, let's break it down into Photoshop. So I have my Photoshop rightly opened on my system now, and I have all these pictures stacked up in my work area, and this is because I've used my Photoshop over time, and these pictures are my recent pictures I edited with my Photoshop. So however, when you open up your Photoshop, you have this particular interface that is new in Photoshop CC 2018. Now at the left hand corner you have recent files, you have CC files, you have LR files. By LR photos you mean Lightroom photos. Then you have CC files, that means Photoshop files. Then you have your recent pictures. Then under which you have create new, and you have what? Open. Now by create new is helps you to create a new interface or a new document where you can work with largely. Then when you click on open, that means you want to import a picture or an artwork or a creative art into what? Your Photoshop. So for the sake of this class, we'll be dealing with a particular picture. So I'm going to click on open, then I'm going to browse through where my picture is saved. Okay, I think this picture is what I want to use. So I'm going to open that particular picture up. And opening that particular picture up is a picture of my friend. I took of him when we were doing some creative class. It's called Lexi with Tomato. Yeah, I don't know how we named that, but yeah, we named it Lexi with Tomato. We're looking at him. He just dropped a new single, so you guys can look out for that song. What's the name of that song again? Samba. He's an artist with tomato. So it's only me that can shoot an artist with tomato. So moving forward, so when you open a picture in CC 2018, the first thing that happens is what? The picture opens up in what? Camera Raw. Now, Camera Raw is not an independent software. It's a plugin inside Photoshop. So naturally, it's in the new CC 2018. Camera Raw is embedded into what? Photoshop. So it opens up in Photoshop, and Camera Raw is where you can easily what? Blend in your your exposures, your contrast, and the likes like that. But for the sake of this class, we won't be diving into Camera Raw. Camera Raw is another topic for another time. So I'm just going to click on what? Open image. I'm not going to tweak anything here. I'm just going to click on what? Open image. And the image is what? Opened right there. So the first thing I want to tell you about in this particular software is that this is Photoshop. So largely when you open up your Photoshop, the place where you have your image here is what is called the work area. So where we have our image here is what's called the work area. Then at this right hand corner where you have this small image called background is where we called layer panel. So in this area is what we called what? Layer panel. And to the extreme left here is what we call our toolbox. So the extreme end here is what? Our toolbox. So it's inside the toolbox that we have different tools that we use at different times for different purposes. So for selection, for moving objects, for pasting, for removing background, that is where you have it. Now at the top here is what we call layers, tool styles. So when I click on a particular tool, the styles will change. That means I can easily browse through different styles of tools I want to use and different functions of the tools. Now for further introduction, to every tool that we have a rectangular button at the right hand bottom corner of it, that means inside that tool there are other tools inside. So to review other tools that are inside a particular tool, you need to what? Right click on that tool. So by right clicking on the first tool inside Photoshop, which is Move Tool, we have Move Tool and what? Artboard tool. So Artboard tool is used for designs and uh, print designs, but for the sake of this class, we'll just be dealing with what? Our Move Tool. Then what is the function of a Move Tool? As the name implies, Move Tool is used to what? Move objects and images in Photoshop. So you move objects and you move images in Photoshop. That's the function of what? The Move Tool. And shortcut of a Move Tool is what? V. Move. V is the shortcut for the Move Tool, and I need to understand this particular shortcut. So because over time I'll be using a lot of shortcuts and I'll be pressing a lot of shortcuts, so you get familiar with them. So our Move Tool what is what? V. Now the next tool we'll be talking about is what? The Marquee tool. So we'll be talking about the Marquee tool. A Marquee tool is a selection tool which you use to select a particular area of a picture or a particular area of an art that you want to work with. And shortcut for a Marquee tool is what? M. So how does a Marquee tool work? Or how do the Marquee tools work? Now I told you that anytime you have a triangle at the right hand bottom corner of any tool, that means that there's some other tools inside a particular tool. So when I right click on this particular tool, I have what? Rectangular Marquee tool and I have elliptical Marquee tool. Both shortcuts are what? M. So I'm going to click on my rectangular Marquee tool and I'm going to click and drag. Then you see like some group of ants walking around a particular sphere of the picture right there. That means that that particular place in that picture is what? Selected. Now to let you know that that particular area of the picture is selected, I'm going to click on this to create a new layer. You might click on that on your system to create a new layer, and I'm going to pick my bucket tool. I'm going to explain that much later. I'm going to click my bucket tool. Then I'm going to change the color to black and I'm going to click. Now you note that it's only the area that was selected that the black color I applied functioned with. So I selected a particular area of my Photoshop of my picture, and when I applied the color did not exceed that singular place where I was selected. That is the function of what? The Marquee tool. That is the function of what? The Marquee tool. Now moving forward from the Marquee tool is what we call the Lasso tool. Now the shortcut for Lasso tool is L. Now what is the function of a Lasso tool? A Lasso tool is also what? A selection tool. But a Lasso tool as an individual tool gives you the right to do what is called freehand drawing. So with a Lasso tool you can easily do what? Do a selection, freehand selection with your hand. So here I can easily draw a particular place I want to mark, and you see the ants jumping around that particular area where I marked. That is the function of what? The Lasso tool. Now looking at the top left corner here, there's two rectangles that are white that are sitting against each other, and here there's two rectangles, one is white and one is black, and they are sitting what? Against each other. So when I click on this particular rectangle here, it means that I want to add to my selection. So I can easily add to my selection. But when I click on this one, it means what? I want to remove from my selection. I hope you understand that. Then the next one is what we call the Quick Selection tool. The Quick Selection tool. Now, I'm going to click now. For the Quick Selection tool, this on the default, and the Quick Selection tool at the top corner here, we have what? A selection tool that doesn't have any sign on it. We have one with a plus sign and we have one with what? A minus sign. So with the one with the plus sign means that you are adding to selection. The one with what? The minus sign means that you are what? Removing from the selection. So let's select a new what? A new selection. So when I click this area, I'm going to To extend now, to widen up my brush for selecting, I press what? The right bracket key. So with the right bracket key, I'm opening up what? My brush. That means I'm making my brush bigger with the right bracket key. And with the left bracket key, I'm making what? My brush smaller. So for the sake of this class, I'm going to increase my brush. I'm going to click a particular area of the picture I'm working with. So when I click those particular areas, Photoshop automatically selects those areas that Photoshop itself thought or thinks have the same picture combination, as it were. So that is the function of that. Now to remove from selection, I'm going to click the minus sign and remove from selection. I can just drag over and the selection has been reduced to this particular point right here. I believe you're following. Then the next one is what we call the magic wand tool. I'm going to hide this particular layer here. So the magic wand tool. Now to deselect what I've already selected here with my with my quick selection tool, I'm going to use a shortcut called Command D to deselect. So I'm using Control D on PC, Command D on Mac to deselect. So with my magic wand tool, now the difference between quick selection tool and magic wand tool is this. Magic wand tool, we select a variable amount of light, or we select within a variable amount of light or variable amount of color in a particular picture. So any place, and when I pick a particular place in my picture, any area that have that same picture style or color style, Photoshop will automatically pick those areas for me. So when I pick this area, that means everywhere that is picked in this picture has what? The same color or what? Exposure style. That is the function of what? The quick magic wand tool. Then the next tool we'll be talking about here is what? The next tool we'll be talking about here is called what? The crop tool. Now, as the name implies, crop tool is used to what? Crop. Now, by cropping, I mean you are eliminating or deleting or cropping out a segment of the picture that you don't want. It's self-explanatory. You crop, you remove, and you what? Remove the area of the picture that you don't want again in your picture. Now, let's assume that I just need his face and some little shred of tomato in this picture. So I'm just going to what? Press and hold, then drag to the place I want. Then I'm going to press what? Enter. And then automatically the areas that I don't want from the first picture are what? Deleted. So I'm going to undo this by pressing Ctrl Z. Now to undo, you can easily go to Edit, then step forward or step backward. So that is how it works. You can do a step forward or what? Step backward. So I'm going to do Ctrl Z. So on this note, I'm just going to use Ctrl D. So Ctrl Z to undo, Ctrl Z to move another step backward. So when you're moving steps and step backward, you're using what? Ctrl Z. But when you're just moving a step backward, you're using Ctrl Z. It's a shortcut, and I believe you write it down as I go. So, and to move a step forward, you use what? Ctrl Shift Z. Ctrl Shift Z to move a step forward. Ctrl Alt Z to move what? A step backward. And Ctrl Z to undo what you have done. So the next tool that we're talking about here is what? Eyedropper tool. Now what is the function of the eyedropper tool? Largely the eyedropper tool helps us to what? Pick a particular color or a sectional color in what? Our picture. So with my eyedropper tool, if I click on this red here, automatically you might think this is red in your own eyes, but Photoshop did not recognize that as red. So I'm going to use my eyedropper tool. I'm bringing up this color swatch. So any color I pick here, you see that the color will switch over here. So with my eyedropper tool, any color I'm picking in my Photoshop is what? Changing to that color right there. That is the function of what? The draw part 2. So I'm going to cancel this. And then the next one I'll be talking about is what? The Spot Healing Brush 2. So the Spot Healing Brush 2, inside the Spot Healing Brush 2, we have what? Healing Brush 2 itself, and we have what? The patch 2. So my Spot Healing Brush 2, by Spot Healing Brush 2, I told you that to increase your brush size, you need to what? Press the what? Right bracket key. So when you toggle the right bracket key, the brush size what? Increases. And to zoom in or zoom out your picture, you use what? Control plus the plus sign. So I'm going to zoom in this picture as much as possible. So I'm using my control plus the plus sign. Now I'm going to reduce my brush size by what? Toggling my what? Left bracket key. Because I want to emphasize and show you the purpose or what the Healing Brush 2 does. So with this, when I brush through this particular place, I just want to remove the tribal mark on his face. So when I brush through that particular section of his face, Photoshop automatically replace the tribal mark with the nearest pixels. Now pixels are the smallest units of any picture. So Photoshop will automatically replace the marked area with the available and the nearest pixels. I believe you understand. So the next two here is Healing Brush 2. So when I pick my Healing Brush 2, I'm going to increase the brush size. Let me look for dents on his face that I want to remove. So let me say we are removing this one here. Now, the difference between the first brush, the Spot Healing Brush 2, and the Healing Brush 2 is that with the Spot Healing Brush 2, Photoshop is dictating for you the best for replacement. That means Photoshop automatically itself pick a particular place and replace the marked area. But with the Healing Brush 2, you will be the one to what? Pick an area you want to replace something with. So I want to remove this dot here. Let me zoom in so you see that better. I want to remove this dot here. So I'm going to press down my Alt key and sample a particular area of his jaw. So when I sample this area, I will come and brush over the place I want to remove. So automatically, Photoshop will recognize that I'm cloning from this side and I'm putting it on this particular side. So you can play around with that. Let's say I want to remove this light that is here. I press down my Alt key. I clone a particular place. I put it over that place. Let's say I want to remove, what is there again? I think this guy has a very nice skin. So let me remove this right here. I press down my Alt key. I clone a particular side and I clone that place off. I press down my Alt key again. I look for the place that is closely related to this side. I clone it with the perfect skin and I brush over this area. And that is the function of what? Our Healing Brush 2. Now, as for the Patch 2, what does the Patch 2 do? The Patch 2 largely, I'm going to reduce the size of this. So by pressing my Control and minus sign. So the Patch 2. Now, with the Patch 2 allow you to do what? A freehand selection and replacement of a particular place in Photoshop. So I'm going to draw with my free hand against this place that is bright. Then I'm going to drag it to a place that is what? Black. Automatically Photoshop will replace that part or try to match them together and smudge them together. But that was not a very nice selection, so I'm going to undo that by pressing Ctrl Alt Z. And I'm going to deselect by pressing Ctrl D. So let me say I want to just remove this part here. I will select the part I want to remove and move it to the part I want to replace it with, and bam, the dent will be gone. So let me say I want to remove the air here. I move it to the part I want to replace, and like that, it is gone. So that's the function of what? Our Patch 2. I don't use this tool frequently, content aware tool. Now the next tool we'll be talking about is what? The Brush tool. And as the name apply, brush. So what is the function of the brush? The brush helps you to what? Brush. That means it helps you apply color or texture or whatever it is in a place you want to put it. It's like a normal brush in your house. It helps you to brush a particular place. Sorry. It helps you to brush apply paint to a particular area of your picture. So with our brush tool, but there are some things with your brush tool that you need to know. Now, it's like we paint in our house. There's a time you use hard brush, there's a time you use soft brush. Now, when you want to lay emphasis on something, you use your hard brush. That means you are painting very hard. Now, when you want to just rebrush or retouch, you're using what? Your soft brush. So in essence, what that means is when you click on this area here with the arrow that is pointing down, you can easily set the hardness of your brush to either very hard or very soft. Then here you can say what? Increase or decrease the size of your brush. So for the sake of this class, we'll just be using the soft brush, which will be on what? 0%. Now, opacity of the brush is on 10 here, but largely should be on 100 on your system. The flow should be on 100 and smooth on 10%. What that means is opacity means that how much pressure are you putting inside, how much pressure are you putting when you are brushing. But when you are brushing so lightly, though your brush is soft, but when your opacity is high, you are brushing with the best of the soft. But when your opacity is slow, that means you are brushing faintly. I believe you understand that. And if you don't understand, as we go on in the class, when we use our brush tool, you get to understand more and better. So let's see what the brush does. We're going to create a new layer. Now, to create a new layer, you're going to click on this particular something that looks like a paper at the bottom right corner, just after your delete button. It means the name is what? Create a new layer. So when you click on create a new layer, then I'm going to brush with a red brush. Now, to pick your brush color, you come here to the foreground color and you click. Then you're going to pick a red color, then click OK. So wherever I paint, I'm painting what? With a red color. Now note that the edges of my brush is what? Is blending into the picture. That means the edges are fainty. That means my brush is what? Very soft. But in a place where what? My brush is hard, in a place where my brush is hard, the edges will not be what? Will not be fainty. And I told you earlier that to remove, to decrease your brush size, you press down your what? Your what? The left bracket key. So I'm going to brush with my hard brush. I believe you see the difference between soft brush and hard brush. The edges what? Are harsh. They are just there, the way you painted them. But with your soft brush, it has a feather. That means it what? Blends into the back, blends into the picture the way you want it. Then the next one is what? The clone stamp tool. So I'm going to click on that. Now the next one is what? The clone stamp tool, and I'm going to zoom in my picture by using what? Control with our plus sign. Now, what does the clone stamp tool? What is the function of the clone stamp tool? And note, because I want to work, any layer you're working on must be the layer you're picking. So because I want to work on this image, I'll pick the background layer where the image is, and that's the only reason why any tool will work on a particular picture. So I'm going to increase my clone stamp tool. As the name implies, you are cloning and you are stamping. That means I'm cloning a particular place and I'm stamping it in another place. So with the clone stamp tool, assuming I want to remove the air that is here, I'm going to copy a particular place by holding down my Alt key and clicking that particular place I want to copy and bring it over the place I want to replace and click over it like that, and I can brush over, and there you have it. The air is gone. Then let's say I want to remove the eyes, like I want to blend him. Don't do this for somebody's picture. So let me say I want to remove one of his eyes. I want to remove these eyes. I can easily clone a skin and brush over the eyes. That is the function of the clone stamp tool. Just help you what? Replace picture. Hash. This is nice. So I'm going to undo that by pressing Ctrl Alt Z. So that's the function of what? The clone stamp tool. So away from the clone stamp tool is art brush and history brush. So history brush and art brush is just for you to go back in history of what your brush has done. So the next one we'll be working with is what? The eraser tool. Now what's the function of the eraser tool? It is as simple as the function of what? It's as simple as the function of your normal eraser that we use in school. So I'm going to make this layer obvious by clicking on the I button that is just beside it. So when I click on that I button, that layer becomes what? More obvious. So I'm going to with your eraser tool, I'm increasing the brush size by pressing my right bracket key. Now when I erase, sorry, because I'm erasing my layer, the layer that I picked is the background layer, and that's not what I want to erase. So I'm going to undo that by pressing Ctrl Z. And I'm going to pick the layer I want to erase. Now, assuming I want to erase this part from this picture, I'm just going to brush it towards my eraser tool, and automatically that area is erased. Is this thing recording? This one that is sleeping. Alright, the next one is what? Our gradient tool. So our next tool is what? Our gradient tool. If you're watching this, make sure you drink water always. Help you hydrated, so you can be hydrated always. Our next tool is what? The gradient tool. So with the gradient tool, my favorite gradient tool is this. So when I click here, you have different gradient tools. But now I'm going to pick this particular one. So what does a gradient tool, what's the function of the gradient tool? Gradient tool helps you to grade. So you are grading from one color to another color. But with this particular one I have picked, means I'm grading from a solid color to transparent color. That means by transparency, I mean that when I brush, whatever is under what I'm brushing will be obvious at the tail end of my gradient. So let's practice that. So I'm going to start from here and draw a line to the center. Now you see what happens, that from here the color is thick and solid, but as it goes further it becomes what? Fainty. So that's the function of what? The gradient tool. I'm going to create a new layer and play around with other type of gradient tools. So I'm going to pick this. So this one is fading from foreground color to my background color. How do I know my foreground and background color? Now if you look at the bottom of your toolbox here, the color that is at the front is your what? Foreground color, and the color that is at the back, which is white, is what? Our background color. So with these two colors, when I brush over to the center, what it does is what? It picks from what? My foreground color and blend it into what? My background color. So I'm going to hide that particular layer by hiding the visibility, logically blinding the eyes. So it's like closing somebody's eyes. I'm going to close the eyes and close this other eyes too. So the next one is what? Blur and smudge tool. Now for the smudge tool, I'm going to pick my background layer and I'm going to zoom in this image. Now we're going to see what the smudge tool does. Now what I just did was move my image around with my hand tool. I'm going to explain what the hand tool does, but how do I get my hand tool is by pressing down my shift key. When I press down my shift key, automatically my tool changed to what? The hand tool. So with the hand tool, I can press and drag out or drag around my image. So let me use the side of the image to give you an exclusive example of what the smudge tool does. Now, as the name implies, smudge is like when you paint a house and you are using your hand to smudge out the paint. That means you're using your hand to take paint from a particular place, then you are brushing it over to another place like that. So with the smudge tool, I'm going to increase my brush size from small to big by pressing and tagging what? My right bracket key. So smudge tool is like this. So that's what I'm just smudging that area of the picture. That is what the smudge tool does. So that is the function of what? The smudge tool. Just smudge around a particular area of a picture. Just smudge it around. That's the function of what? The smudge tool. So the next one is what? I don't use that one regularly. This one is what? Dodge and burn. So our dodge and burn tool, by the name implies, burn. Burn is adding black to a particular section of your picture, while dodge is what? Adding brightness to a particular section of your picture. So let's pick dodge, and I'm going to press Ctrl 0. So it's Ctrl O my picture comes back to the normal shape
to fit into my screen. So I'm going to use my dodge tool. I'm going to zoom in on this picture to his face. Now by zooming into his face means that I want you to see exclusively what the smudge tool is doing. So when I smudge this area, you see that the light in that area has increased. I don't know if you see that. So I'm going to go back and come back. I'm going to go a step back and a step forward. So I'm going to hold my control and tap my Z. So I'm going to press Ctrl Z before and Ctrl Z again to view after. So because I use my dodge tool, I have applied brightness to a particular section of that image. That is function of the dodge tool. So before and after, before and after. Now with my bond tool, you use your bond tool to apply black to a particular section of your image. So if I use my bond tool here, I need to exposures on 3 here, so I'm going to increase it to 100. So when I'm painting like this, I'm adding black to that section of the picture. If you can see it well, let me say Ctrl Z to do before, Ctrl Z again to do after. So I'm tagging Ctrl plus Z. You're seeing the before and the after, before and the after, before and the after. That is function of the bond tool. The next one is the text tool. The text tool, the function of the text tool is it helps you to add text to your image. So to add a text to your image, I'm going to click anywhere where you want to put the text. I'm going to click this area of the image and write my name, Johnlekan. So I've added a text to that image. Now, to change the text character, I'm going to press Ctrl A to highlight that image. Then I come to this end of my picture, then I press down and I can change the character. You see, as I browse through the characters, the character of the picture is changing there, of the text is changing. So just browse through your own Photoshop. I believe that you should have this particular one. So let me just change it to Showcard Gothic. So with Showcard Gothic, that is what it gave us. Now to change the color, I'll bring my text tool closely to the text again. I'm going to click once, then I'm going to Ctrl A to highlight. Then I come to this color panel here, and when I click that color panel, I can easily change the color of my text. So I'm going to pick this color to be red, so it can be obvious, or white. Let's leave it at white. So I'm going to press OK. I'm going to use Ctrl 0 to go back to the normal shape of my picture to fit into the screen, and that is our text. Now the next one is the pen tool. Now what's the function of the pen tool? The pen tool largely helps us to do a structural selection. That's the function of the pen tool. So let me assume I want to pick this area of his head. I'm going to pick the layer that has the picture in it. I'm going to hide the layer that has this text by blinding the eyes here. So I'm going to press down my Shift key to drag the picture around to fit into a place I want it. Now with the pen tool, you easily press around like this. Now, one thing about the pen tool that we need to know is that we can bend the straight line. So when I click this part, I can click to this end here. When I click, I will hold and click, then I will drag around. So when I'm dragging, I'm bending that line. So we can have a very nice curve. And after bending that line, I'm going to press down my Alt key and click at this center here to remove one of the lines. Do you understand? So I can come here again and drag and press down my Alt key and click the center to remove the line. Then like that is what the pen tool does. Click can click like this and do something like this, and come here and pick. Then you can drag down to capture all the jaw at once. This is a rough selection, so then I just go use my hand to bring down the image. I press down my shift key and use my mouse to drag. Then at the end you double click. Then you press down your shift button and you press enter to turn what you have picked with your pen to a selection. Do you understand? Now to turn what you have picked with your pen to a selection, you press down your control button and you press enter. So the area we have browsed through with our pen tool becomes what? A selection. Am I clear? So the next tool is our hand tool, as I've been using since. So with our hand tool, you can use it to move images around, especially when the image is zoomed out. So next up is our zoom tool. Now zoom tool, when you pick up your zoom tool, you just drag over an area you want to zoom in, or drag up to zoom out, drag down to zoom in. But for this, that's the function of zoom tool. Then I'm going to press Ctrl 0 to pull the image back into perspective. I'm going to use my Ctrl D to do what? To deselect. Don't forget that particular shortcode, Ctrl D to deselect, because I'll be using Ctrl D a lot of times, especially when we go into proper photo editing. Ctrl D to deselect. So this is where we are, and I believe you understand everything about the toolbox. These are the tools you'll be using for different purposes in Photoshop. Then after then we are going to pick up our layer panel. Now, what is the function of this layer panel? Earlier, I should have said that you should know that Photoshop works with layers. It's like as you're building, Photoshop is like constructing a house. So you are building a block on another block on another block on another block on another block. So now the block that is at the top would be the most visible, or the visible block in your work area. So this is your work area. Now let me assume that this block is at the top. As this block is at the top here, when I make it visible, you won't see the face of the person that is below it. Now, if I come here and do this, now because this black is above this gradient that we added, the black is still showing, but the gradient is above our image. I believe you understand. So let me bring this. You can now arrange your layers by dragging them up or down according to your preference. So let me say I want this text to show above all this destructive gradient and brush that we have added to it. So I'm going to drag this layer. I'm going to click and hold this layer. And when I see those two blue lines, I'm going to drop. Then automatically the name becomes obvious. Am I clear? So that is that about the toolbox and our layer stacking. Now there's some things we call adjustment layer in Photoshop. So I'm going to hide all these layers by blinding the eyes, and I'll be left with our background layer. Now there's something we call adjustment layers. So all these adjustment layers are layers that we can use to adjust color, change color, put color, change to black and white in Photoshop. Change to black and white in Photoshop. So the first adjustment layer that we're talking about here is brightness and contrast. So when you click on this particular one that is here, brightness and contrast, now assuming you don't have this on your Photoshop, you don't have this adjustment layer in your Photoshop, easily go to Windows, then look for adjustment. And when you click the adjustment, that thing has stopped.
So first thing first, if you don't have the adjustment layer in your workstation here, you can easily come to your window panel and click adjustments. So by clicking adjustments, automatically the adjustments will join to this panel right here. So the first adjustment layer we'll be dealing with here is what? Brightness and contrast. So I'm going to take back my picture to fit into my scope by pressing Ctrl 0. So when I click on brightness and contrast, when I click that, it's going to automatically add another layer just above the layer that was selected. So here, by brightness, I can increase the brightness of my picture or decrease the brightness of my picture. Then take it back to 0. Then here I can either decrease the contrast or increase the contrast. By contrast means contrast means you are making the brightness and the shadow more punchy. By reducing it, that means you're reducing the punchiness of the shadow and the highlights at a time. So I'm going to take it back to 0. Now the next one is what? Levels. So by levels, easily it means that you are either reducing or increasing your shadow, mid-tone, or highlight. So by highlight, I mean the brightness. By shadow, you mean the dark area. Then by mid-tone, you mean the middle between shadow and highlight. So this black triangle here implies our shadow. The gray triangle here implies our mid-tone, while the white triangle here implies what? Our highlight. So when I drag the highlights to the right, to the left, it increases what? The highlight. When I drag the shadow to the right, it increases what? The shadow. When I drag the mid-tone to the left, it increases what? The light inside in the mid-tone. When I bring the mid-tone to the left, it increases the darkness in the mid-tone. So that is the function of what? Our level. Then the next one is what? Our curve. Now there's so many explanations to this, but as time goes on, we'll be diving into this particular these tools and adjustment layers more properly. But this is just a basic introduction. So this area from here to here is the bright, which is our highlight. And from here to here is what? The dark part, which is our shadow. So here at the center of this line here is where our mid-tone lies. So when I drag it up, I'm increasing the brightness in the mid-tone. When I bring it down, I'm increasing the what? The darkness in what? The mid-tone. So bring it back to the center. Now when I bring this to the right, I'm increasing the what? I'm decreasing the what? The light. Then this, I'm decreasing what? The shadows. That is the function of what? Our curves. And the next one is what? Exposure. So with exposure, you can either increase your exposure. Exposure means light and brightness. Increase your exposure or decrease your exposure. So as the case might be, offset is like you playing around with what? Your mid-tone. That is the meaning of offset. Then gamma correction is just a color correction mode in exposure. Then the next one we're talking about is what? Hue and saturation. Saturation is the density of color in your image. So when I increase my saturation, the color in my image what? Pops out. It becomes very much, depending on how much. When I decrease it, the picture automatically becomes what? Black and white, because I have removed color, saturation from what? The picture. Then under saturation we have lightness. So we either take it to the black side to make your picture black, or take it to the white side to what? Make your picture white. Then the definition of hue is like you're changing a color pattern in your picture. So with hue, if I want to change, when I'm dragging towards hue, that means it's changing the color in the picture. So that's the function of the hue. That's the function of the hue and saturation panel. Then the next one is what? The color balance. I need to hide all the adjustment layers that we have done, so it doesn't disrupt our picture. So by hiding them, I'm just clicking on the high button or visibility button just at the left hand side of each panel. So the next panel we're working with is what? Our color balance. Now what color balance does is helps you to maintain a reasonable color and balance each of the colors that are in your picture. So you have cyan to red. Cyan is the opposite of red. Green is the opposite of magenta. Then blue is the opposite of what? Yellow. In Photoshop, yellow means warm, blue means cool. So it's either it is warm or it is what? Cool. That is the function. Then magenta or green help you with your skin tone. Then cyan or what? Red. That's how you balance what? Your color in what? Photoshop. That is about color balance. So I'm going to hide that. Then after color balance, we'll be talking about what? Black and white. As the name implies, black and white. So when immediately you click on it, it automatically turns your picture to what? Monochrome, which is black and white. So I'm going to hide that too. Then the next one is what? Photo filter. Then with photo filter, you can add color. You can add color that you want to filter your picture with. I can add color to be blue. Then when I increase the density is like opacity. That means you're increasing the impression that the color is going to be added with, or the intensity or density as the case might be. So here you can add filters. There are filters that already come with Photoshop. You can add filter. You can add a cool filter. And I told you that blue means what? Cool. So because I'm adding a blue filter, the picture becomes cool. Then you can add orange. You can add sepia or any color that you want. So I'm going to hide that too. Then the next one is what? Color channel, color mixer. So here you can easily mix different colors together to give you a particularly what you want. There's color mixer. Then the next one you'll be talking about is invert. So this is just helping invert the whole color in your image. I don't know what this is used for, but you can just use it to create art as you want. I hardly use it. I've never used it before, either of the two. Now the next one is what? Properties. So here you can easily merge together the properties of your image, so you know where shadows are, you know where brightness is. So with property, it simply bring out where thick shadows are, turn them to pure black. Where colors are prominent, turns them to red. Where colors are not so prominent, turn them to yellow. Where light is prominent, they become very bright. That is the function of what? Polarize. So the next one is what? Threshold, then selective color. And by selective color, here you can work on individual colors inside your picture. So when you pick red, you can toggle around what you want in your red. You can increase the magenta inside your red. You can increase the yellow or decrease the yellow inside your red. Then you can pick different colors for different purposes that you can just tweak around. And next one is what? Gradient map. I told you the function of the gradient too, but now this is an adjustment layer called what? Gradient map. So with your gradient map, you can pick different gradients to suit into different picture. We'll be using a lot of this gradient map as we edit, because largely I use gradient map for color grading and for so many other purposes. So I'm going to hide all we have added to the picture. All we have added towards the picture. So now we have talked about everything that has to do with adjustment layer. We've talked about our layer panel, and we've talked about our toolbox. Then we've talked about our work area. This is our work area. The place where our picture is our work area. And at the end of the day, there are so many other things you can do. Let me assume you want to save this picture. Probably you are done editing this picture. You easily come to File, then you go to Save As. Then you pick the directive of where you want to save the picture. You can either save the picture as a PSD file, which means that you want the picture to be saved in Photoshop document. That means every layer that you have stacked up inside this particular file, when you open it up again in Photoshop, all the layers will be there. Or you can go to the drop down menu and save as what? JPEG, which is the general picture format. So you can save as JPEG, PSD, PNG, or any kind of format you want. But for the sake of this class, you can either save as JPEG or PSD. And that is it about that. And the shortcut to save is what? Ctrl-Shift-S. That is save as. Then to just save picture directly, just use your what? Ctrl-S. And that is that about that. So go through all these ones, and the assignment for today is simple. This picture will be attached or will be given out to the files that will be given to you. Then I need you to go and master all the shortcuts in our tools and all the shortcuts inside Photoshop. Now, to get the shortcuts inside Photoshop, easily go to File. Is it File now? Easily go to File, then go down and press Keyboard Shortcuts. So the alternative to that, or the shortcut to that, is Alt Shift Control K. So when you press that, you can easily go one after the other to see all the shortcuts that are available. To open a new file is Control N. To open a picture is Control O. To browse in Bridge, Bridge is an Adobe software, it's alternate Control O. Then you just look at those shortcuts like that and master them, and you might not cram them, but with time, as you play around with them, it becomes more obvious the purpose of each and every of these softwares. Of these shortcuts, and I need you to master and cram the shortcuts of each of the tools. And to know the shortcut of each of the tools, just go to the tool and right click on it. At the edge here, you will see the shortcut. So as for move is V, as for marquee tool is M, as for lasso is L, as for magic wand is W, as for crop is C, as for eyedropper is I, as for healing brush tool is J, as for stamp is S, as for brush is B, and those ones are eraser is E, gradient is G, smudge is I don't know, and is dodge and burn is O, text is T, and is H, and the last one, which is Z, is what? Zoom. That is the shortcuts. A lot of the shortcuts comes with their name, and just play around them like that. And that will be the end of today's class. See you in the next class.